Survivor's ready! Direct from Hobart, it's time for you to hear those so-called experts from Survivor Oz talk about another reality show, despite the fact they always said they wouldn't ever talk about Survivor. It's The Amazing Race Oz, and here's your host,
Colin Hilding. Welcome back to The Amazing Race Oz for our coverage of Amazing Race Canada Season 3. And if you didn't hear us last week, then just blame Kiwi 6. We're going to place all the blame and blame Noah, because as you notice, he's not here right now. He's being reprimanded.
Can't be bothered.
He's
can't be bothered to get up.
Can't be bothered to get up. Noah is snowed in right now. There's snow in Snug. There's about 1 centimeter of snow right now, so they're closing pretty much the entire town, and they're calling in the Red Cross or whatever it is they have in Snug. So Noah will not be joining us, but we do have 2 others here joining us, and this is going to be kind of like deja vu for us, but not you guys, because you didn't hear us last week. We'll go into that in a second. But first of all, thank you for joining us here. You probably are nice and warm in New Jersey right now with no snow. Anthony, Rossi, whichever name you want to go by today.
Yeah, good to be here in the warm 30 plus degrees Celsius for the non-Americans.
Which is everybody going by Celsius other than the Americans, yeah. Jared, you're back again this week from Emu Plains, and as we went over pre-show, no snow there.
No snow, just a lovely kind of winter day. The sun is out, the weather is confused, it's snowing in Tasmania, but here it's perfect, so that's how it should be.
And
what temperature is it there?
At a guess, I would say 20 degrees Celsius.
And that's your winter.
Wow.
It's I'm pretty much right about 25 degrees right now in Winnipeg. So we're
in the middle of the night.
In the middle of the night, yeah, pretty much. That's why we get very hot here in Winnipeg. So I actually was kind of envious when I saw that Noah had snow today. That would have been kind of fun. But we're not going to talk about the weather any longer because we have more interesting
weather
things.
Oz.
First, a brief explanation. If you were looking for us last week and didn't find us, the episode was recorded, but due to a couple of mix-ups, and again, we're going to blame Kiwi6 for this one, as you've noticed we've changed our server, but it was a little bit more than that. Part of our episode got scrambled, and it wasn't really something that there was time to recover. By the time we would have been able to recover the episode, we would have been around to recording this one anyway, so we're just going to group them together today. So we're talking about episodes 3 and 4, and our memories are still fresh because I personally think that episode 3 is still the best one of the season, and episode 4 is not far behind for me. But let's jump right into it. Rossi, what did you think about episode 3 first? Where were they in that one? Buenos Aires or on their way to somewhere else?
Yeah, I think they were in Santiago, and then they moved. I thought it was a good episode. A lot of interesting decisions and challenges and a surprise elimination.
Jared?
Episode 3 was a great episode. I'd agree that potentially the best of the season so far, right up there with episode 4. Just really great editing throughout the whole episode, getting to see sort of lots of teams, lots of funny moments, and just really having no idea who was going to go home in the end.
Yeah, this season is really very suspenseful, I'm finding, compared to even the first 2 seasons of The Amazing Race Canada. We're going to go over a little bit later how some of these teams, now we're about 4 episodes in, how their standings are jumping all over the place. And we're getting a lot of that. I think that's just through how challenging the season is, but also the editing, as you said, is so good. And at the end of this episode, I mean, they could not have done a better job. The first thing we really have to talk about is, again, I'm just going to bring up, every single week, I'm going to bring up my favorite moment from Brian and Cynthia. Brian wanted Cynthia to show some legs so they could catch a cab quicker. Brian and Cynthia are quickly becoming one of my very favorite teams. I don't think we have too much to discuss on that, but we'll just jump right from Brian and Cynthia into the roadblock in Buenos Aires. So the roadblock was sponsored by Mentos this week. there's a lot of product placement going on in the Amazing Race Canada, but I'm finding that it's not as annoying. Before we even talk about the roadblock, are you liking all the product placement this season, Rossi?
Oh my god. I was gonna say when we did episode 4, I was gonna lose my shit when I had to talk about the BMO Express card. How many times do they have to give the full name? I'm so sick of hearing the person at the desk in the airport say, "What are you paying with?" And then some contestant, "The BMO MasterCard, sponsored by Sprint," or whatever, and it's like, ugh.
Yeah, it gets a little bit annoying after a while, but
I heard it the first episode. We're 4 episodes in, and I've heard it every time.
It's so complicated, though, that I think they could have worked this into a challenge, because you have to wonder, this is a race, and how many takes do they have to do? Because guaranteed they're making the team say it right. So how many times are they screwing up? They're like, your BMO Platinum Elite Extraordinary Awesome Amazing Elite Express MasterCard, and they're like, oh, sorry, you left out this part. They're having to do like a million takes for this. This could have been a challenge in of itself. Outside of the BMO thing, like in this episode we saw with the Mentos, and there's lots of product placement going on this season. Again, my personal opinion, I'm thinking that it's way more well integrated than what we saw in the American season. You know, the Fitbit seemed like a bit of a stretch that season. No?
No, I would agree. Just working it in so that it's part of challenges and it actually has a reason to be there, and it's not just kind of like some side thing, like with the Fitbit, like, congratulations, you did this many steps this episode, good on you. For it to actually have a purpose and not be too in your face, and I think for it not to take itself too seriously is really important. Like you said, with like the card that they're using to pay for everything, like, it's a bit of a joke each episode, kind of seeing a different team try to not murder that name when they pronounce it at the counter. And I agree with you, it would make a great final challenge. Like, I mean, just pronouncing that could be the most difficult final challenge in the history of the show. They could be there for hours, so fingers crossed that does come up again.
Yeah, and Rossi did mention here that we forgot to talk about the suicidal dog. We speculated in episode 2 about whether or not the dogs there were malnourished or homeless, or we should feel sorry for them. And we don't know if this was just a very helpful dog stepping in front of a cab to assist the teams. Like, that's something they're trained for there. Maybe this was a police dog and they received better training than Brian and Cynthia do as police officers. Or this dog wanted to end its life. That's the debate. Rossi, which one is it?
Very helpful stray dog, I believe.
Jared, are you going to agree, or was the dog suicidal?
I don't know. I think that's a bit of a judgment call. I wouldn't want to speak on behalf of the dog if it's still alive. I think that's a question you have to put to it itself.
Well,
Interview.
yeah, exactly. We want the suicidal or very helpful dog from Santiago to come on to the Amazing Race Oz. You'll become our second interview following Cormac and Nicole, which you can download right now, Season 2 contestants.
Hopefully
right now. We are no longer on Kiwi 6, so no blame can go to the new one. So, Roadblock we said it was Mentos, and they kind of just had to spell stuff out, which when I heard about this, as soon as they introduced what the Roadblock was, I thought it was the lamest thing ever. But this was so entertaining. We had Dana's policing of the shop where she was snooping in people's purses, and they didn't seem to mind about it. And then, of course, Sabrina, who couldn't tell her differences between her D's and her P's. Rossi, talk about the roadblock here.
Oh my God! Was it Dana, or was it?
I think it was Dana.
Amanda. Dana and the wrestler going through those purses was the funniest thing I've ever seen. Oh my God, and then her trying to police the woman, like, she's laughing. Something's going on here. Yeah. And it was just one of the funniest things in the Amazing Race Canada history.
Yeah.
And then Sabrina's meltdown over not spelling things properly, like her blowing up at the drop of a pin. Like, it was a good start to this challenge.
Jared, did you like this challenge, Mentos and all?
Yeah, I did. Like, to start off with it, I thought it was a bit lame, but that's what you really want from the Amazing Race, as long as the lame challenges are difficult. And it was interesting sort of seeing the teams pair up, and then you got the whole situation with Hamilton being left by himself and then trying to sort of get the other teams to work with him, and then he got pissed off that nobody wanted to collaborate with him. So it was just funny seeing the teams pair up and kind of the random pairings of the groups.
Yeah, Hamilton and Michaela are going to become a big talking point for this episode and in a few minutes when we jump into episode 4, but I'll just give my opinion on this now. And Rossi, you're the Hamilton Michaela fan. I'll give you the privilege of rebuttal here, but I just don't understand the logic behind Hamilton. I'm not going to say Michaela, because from what we've seen, Hamilton's the one who's making a lot of these decisions, and that the decisions don't make sense. And we're going to get more into the earlier thing with the Express Pass, when they used the Express Pass when they were already in the lead, so they didn't have to switch. That'll come up again later. But they have the Express Pass, they have to give it away, and I was following all these threads online all week about people's opinions about should the other teams have helped, because all of these teams started teaming up together because it was a difficult challenge. Hamilton didn't think to team up, so he turns to, I think it was Cynthia and not Brian, Neil, I think. So Cynthia and Neil are already working together, and they're almost done, and he turns to them and says, "Can you guys help me out?" And they, understandably so, say, we're almost done. I mean, it's a race, obviously. And he's, of course, well, I don't think I'm going to give the Express Pass to them. This makes no sense to me, and I'm amazed that so many people watched this episode and still were commenting online about how, I can't believe that Cynthia shot herself in the foot. He was asking this wasn't him asking Brian and Cynthia. He was asking Cynthia and Neil, two people on two separate teams. So if they had said yes, which one was he giving the Express Pass to? One of them was still going to be let down. I mean, it did make sense for him to try to present this like he was leveraging the Express Pass. So, Rossi, do you have any rebuttal to that?
I don't know. Whenever I think of Express Pass leverage, I think of Tim and Marie, who kind of handled it pretty poorly and berating the teams to give it to them. I think this was kind of just a subtle, it wasn't subtle, but a more subdued attempt to try and get help.
Mm-hmm.
Because any team who knows they all know Hamilton and Michaela had it, so any kind of advantage by helping Hamilton and Michaela, they're attempting to win them over through the pass, and anything that they do could help them. So I don't think it was a bad thing to ask. I don't see the harm.
I agree with you on that. Again, we talked about this in the Lost episode, which may or may not ever turn up, but really no problem. I have no problem with Hamilton for asking. Why not ask? I mean, Suki and Jinder spent all of season 2 asking for help. They got a lot of criticism for it too. But why not take the chance, Yeah, I know you were going to groan at Suki and Jinder. Please come on the show, Suki and Jinder. Rossi will not be there. But there's no problem with asking. But it was the fact that after asking, he said, well, I'm not going to give them the Express Pass. You were going to, even if they did help you, one of them wasn't getting the Express Pass. So, how much of a jerk would he have looked like if he's like, Cynthia and Neil decided to help me, so I'm going to give the Express Pass to Cynthia. And then Brian's left out in the cold and suddenly he's eliminated? It just made no sense to me. And I don't think it's necessary. Neil, what about him?
Well, you said Brian's left out in the
cold. Oh, yeah, we never see teams working together. This was all of the teams. Let's clear that up. All of the teams were pretty much working together. Again, I don't really think that Hamilton... I don't think that Hamilton is really, that bad for asking. It's just, I really don't think he was thinking when he made that comment. It should also be noted that when other teams, if he was going to blame Cynthia and Neil for not helping, it should be noted when other teams showed up later on who were behind, he didn't offer to help them because he was ahead. So I just want to have that said. Anything else to add, either Jared or Rossi?
Just one thing. He was not the only one to do it alone. Simi and Jesse both did it alone. Right,
but interestingly enough, they showed up after Hamilton, and he didn't offer to help them. So I'm just seeing that Hamilton wasn't really thinking when he made those comments about, they should have been helping me, because I
just think, ask for any help you can get. If someone's willing to help you out, that's a big bonus to you, and I don't think the harm in.
Yeah.
I think it was just a throwaway comment about we're not going to give them the express
Well,
pass. I don't think it was to be taken too much to
We thought we were
heart.
going to cover about 10 or 15 minutes on episode 3 because we already talked about it last week. We're talking more about this now. I don't think it was a throwaway comment because
I'm getting passionate here.
the beginning of the episode started with Hamilton saying all of the teams are going to want to suck up to us now that we have this. You know, all the teams are going to be asking for us to do this, and they're going to be offering
They
this.
had 2 episodes to get rid of it. Of course,
Yeah, but
they are.
he clearly had. But this isn't a throwaway thing because he had it in his head. Everybody was going to be approaching him, and we saw one person approach him. And again, nothing wrong with having that in your head. I mean, we've seen other teams say like, "Well, we're expecting this," but I just think that Hamilton had in his head, everybody's going to want to help us, and because one person didn't, he's like, "Well, express pass isn't coming to them." And once we see episode 4, I think it's pretty clear they were never going to give the express pass to anybody who was offering help. They already had an idea who they were giving it to. Jared, do you have anything else to add to this?
Not particularly.
All right, then we can move on. Here we have the even better part of the episode, which is blind soccer or blind football. Wherever you're living, you're gonna one person's gonna correct us on what we're calling it. Let's just call it blind soccer because that's what they called it. So, team members blindfold, and the other one is kind of guiding them along. And the first place team at this point, I believe it's been about a week and a half, but I believe first place was Nick and Sabrina still at this point, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so Nick and Sabrina lead. Nick is a professional soccer player, or at least was, played in Italy. I mean, huge in Italy, and if he could play professionally there, he must be pretty good. And he sucked balls on this challenge. Let's just lay it out there.
Pun intended.
Yes, pun intended. This wasn't like the surfing challenge in Amazing Race 25, where we've seen instances of this where a team's expertise, the hockey girls in season 2 of Canada, I mean, this was along that lines. I would say, in some ways, an even bigger meltdown for Nick and Sabrina than it was for Natalie and Megan last year on the hockey challenge. Let's talk about Nick and Sabrina, but also let's just take the time to talk about this entire challenge. Rossi, what do you want to talk about for this?
The improper technique of soccer playing with the hop and the penguin waddle or whatever else people did, that would definitely not pass in the World Cup or anything like that. But I think my not issue, but like Sabrina once again proving that she was ready to give up so quickly. Yeah, they had spent a lot of time doing it, but a lot of the teams were there before that. They like took the penalty before, after one team got it. I think that was too hasty. Like they almost got eliminated at the end of it, which was surprising. But had they just waited a few more tries and then took the penalty, I would have understood it. But they kind of gave up really quickly.
Mm-hmm. Jared?
Yeah, I agree. I think they were too hasty to take the penalty. I think they just needed, even if they'd stuck around a bit longer, they would have seen kind of the other team's strategy with the whole hopping with the ball, and I think that Nick could have probably copied that quite easily. To be fair, he wasn't getting the best direction either from Sabrina, but that's another story. I did love his comment about as soon as he put the blindfold on, he lost all sense of direction, which I thought was just the biggest kind of moment of let's state the obvious. What did you expect was going to happen?
Yeah, Nick and Sabrina, they have moments where they are so smart. They kind of flaunt that, and it's a bit of a, character quirk. I know you're going to roll your eyes, Rossi, but it's a great character quirk. They're always like, we're going to be really smart, but they do have some really brilliant ideas every once in a while that we don't see from other teams. And then they get something like this, and I'm not going to fault Nick for not figuring out how to do this, because let's be honest, the majority of the teams were having no more success than Nick and Sabrina were until Nick and Matt came up with the hop, which leave it up to the wrestlers to come up with the least aggressive looking technique ever to play soccer. But Nick, who thought that Nick and Matt would be the geniuses on this challenge? And every other team just sort of followed suit at that point, using the hop to carry the ball along.
Or Neil and Kristen did the clock.
Yeah, but Nick and Sabrina, had they stuck around, guaranteed it would have been one of those moments where they're looking like, oh, okay, now we get it, and they would have breezed through it. So, having seen season 2, Jared, you won't really be able to comment on this, but having seen season 2, Rossi, do you think that maybe they were just a little bit afraid, oh, this is going to be a repeat of Natalie and Megan and the hockey challenge? Maybe it was pride. I don't know. What do you think they were thinking when they took that 2-hour penalty?
It's definitely a callback to that. Like, I'm surprised there wasn't a flashback on the screen when Nick was struggling. But in the defense of Nick, he was doing it in an altered state, I guess you could say. Like, he normally doesn't play soccer blindfolded. I mean, if the hockey girls had to do, like, get those shots while drunk or something like that, I would understand them missing it. But, like, they were in the right physical state and everything. Nick had a bit of an additional struggle. So I will give him that.
Yeah.
So I don't think it was quite the same, but I think it was pretty similar, and he didn't want to get too embarrassed.
Well, I think that's a good point, too, because it's easy to look at this challenge and be more critical of Nick and Sabrina because they took the penalty, which I don't think anybody really likes it when a team just takes a penalty. Rex and Bob did it last year, and it nearly cost them. It is like you said, Rossi. I mean, I struck a nerve with Rex and Bob. Is it just Rex and Bob in general?
No, they took a 6-hour penalty.
Yeah, a lot more absurd than the 2-hour penalty that Nick and Sabrina took here. We're just going to put this out there now. We are dying to have Rex and Bob on this show. Like, if you guys are listening, please come on. We love Rex and Bob. But yeah, taking a penalty doesn't work out. And if Nick and Sabrina are fans of the show, I wouldn't put it past them that they were looking back to season 2 thinking, Natalie, like you said, Natalie and Megan were doing a hockey challenge and they weren't blindfolded. Now I'm blindfolded and I can't do this and I've got Sabrina guiding me. He probably didn't have a lot of faith, but we'll find out in a little bit how it almost cost them. After this, which was a wildly entertaining challenge, we get the detour, which they bring back something they've done before where there's a limited amount of spots. I love that idea, having a detour where you can't have more than half the people doing either. Basically, the options were dance or dine. Dance was the teams are dirty dancing together, which worked out real well since we had Neil and his daughter Kristen dirty dancing together, and brothers Gino and Jesse. This was
Nick and
Matt. Most of the people that you think, if they knew what this challenge was, they would not do it, ended up doing it. And of course, the other half was, I thought, slightly less entertaining, but provided some challenges for the teams where they just had to serve and memorize these dishes in a different language. Rossi, do you want to talk about both of these? Just briefly cover it, dancing and dining.
I love the half teams can only do, only a certain amount of teams can do each thing. I think that's good. Get all the challenges done so you don't have one person doing this and then everyone else doing that. That's good. I don't know if I should mention it for sake of going too long, but the dancing kind of thought about season 25 with the surfing because we had Dijon and Leilani. Of course they're going to do the dancing, and of course they get it in one try. A bit iffy on there. But I thought the challenges were good. They were pretty challenging. Like, I give credit to Opie and Amanda and Dana for being able to do the food one.
Yeah, and Simi and Opie, it's surprising because I've said it a couple of times throughout the season. My biggest pet peeve with The Amazing Race is when every team just starts switching detours as soon as it doesn't work, because I just think that it takes a lot of the competition out of the race, and I'd like to see people stick with it. That's where the drama is. But Simi and Opie try to switch and totally shoot themselves in the foot because they have to go back. But they still ended up finishing quite well. So, Jared, what did you think about the dance and dine and then the confusion over teams trying to switch detours and not being able to?
I thought it was great. I think as long as you have two detours that seem fairly even on the difficulty scale, then it's good to have the limit to the number of teams that can do either one. and this was good because you had kind of the dancing as a physical challenge, and then sort of the restaurant and the ordering as more of a mental challenge. So it was good to have two things that were quite separate in what skills they tested. So yeah, I think they were both difficult challenges that provided plenty of funny moments. I loved Sabrina asking the people at the table about 50 times what they were ordering, and thinking she kind of had it all under wraps, and then she'd be like, hang on, again, what was that you wanted?
Yeah.
What was that again? So, yeah, that was great. Really good challenges that took a fair bit of time as well to complete, so that was good.
And we saw a lot of shakeups during this leg. For the first part, Neil and Kristen, who really struggled at that detour, like really struggled, and were this close to switching, ended up coming in first place. We're not going to talk about every single team. We'll do that at the end, but just running down the rankings here, Neil and Kristen in first place. Gino and Jesse, they bounced back from a very bad second leg, second place. Nick and Matt, who are developing a rivalry with Gino and Jesse, in third place. Dijon and Lilani, or as he was referred to in this episode, everything but Dijon. He was Dijon, he was Deshaun. Nobody knows the guy's name, but they're in fourth place. Simi and Opie in fifth after unsuccessfully trying to switch. That was impressive. Brent and Sean, the body doubles for Gino and Jesse, or I guess the other way around, sixth place. Hamilton, Michaela, they come in seventh, so struggling in the Mentos Challenge didn't hurt them too bad. Nick and Sabrina, Brian and Cynthia, and Dana and Amanda, the last three teams. I know there have been races at the finish line that were this close in Amazing Race history, but I think when you combine how good the editing was in this, and then you add on top of that the fact that Nick and Sabrina were waiting out this penalty, like, was this at least one of the most suspenseful moments ever for you in Amazing Race history, Rossi, or not really? Would you not give it that much credit?
No, it was pretty dramatic because you saw Brian and Cynthia walking up like steps away from the mat, and you saw Dana and Amanda on the bridge right behind them, and then Nick and Sabrina in the corner trying to run on the mat. And I say it's like second closest I've ever seen. I think the only one that beats it is the season 2 of The American for the finale.
Yeah, the literal race to the finish line.
That was very close as well. Yeah.
Jared?
Yeah, it was definitely right up there. I think the thing that really impressed me was the way that it was all edited together. In my mind, I had, like, I didn't even think that Nick and Sabrina would potentially go home. I thought, yeah, they've got a long penalty, but they've checked in first, and the other teams kind of seem to be struggling with the challenges. And I think just because they showed so much challenge footage from the detours, it just felt like they were taking teams forever to complete, and that Nick and Sabrina, or maybe like one or two teams will pass them, but for all the teams to go past them and for them to like come so close to being eliminated, and then for the last two teams to be within minutes of each other, was just a really good ending.
Yeah, and again, credit to the editing of this and how the littlest thing can make all the suspense when we're constantly being shown Nick and Sabrina's clock, and it's showing, something like 7 minutes left or whatever it was, and then they're in the cab and they're asking the cab drivers how long is it to the pit stop, and they're like, 5 minutes, and you're like, wow, I think they lost this. So much suspense there. I mean, so many different layers they added to make this a race, and all three teams at the end, but Nick and Sabrina, they end up coming in 8. Brian and Cynthia so narrowly miss out on being eliminated, and Dana and Amanda, who were kind of an absent team, I think, this season. They didn't really, they were my preseason pick to win, so I'm a little bit more disappointed. But I don't know, even in watching over this episode, it's hard to pinpoint why they did so poorly on so many of these legs. Let's talk about just them because we won't get a chance again. Rossi, what are your feelings on Dana and Amanda overall?
One quick thing I want to mention before the Dana and Amanda. I think had the pit stop been a more notable location, not like on the other side of a bridge or something like that, had it been a landmark, I'm pretty certain Nick and Sabrina could have easily been eliminated. Because a lot of the team struggled to see where John was. They were like looking at, where is he? And then had it been like the Eiffel Tower or something super specific, I think it would have been a lot closer. And Dana and Amanda, they were good. I think they were very physical when they had to run up. Well, they didn't need to, but they ran up that entire mountain. I think like they were definitely able to physically compete, but they were very like not mentally there, like by running up the mountain and things like that. And they definitely didn't live up to the hype that they had preseason. Like I know a lot of us, like you, I, Noah, and Alex probably all put them in our final three. So kind of very, very disappointing.
Jared?
For me, they were probably my least favorite team left, so it wasn't that sad to see them go. But yeah, a little bit surprised that they wound up towards the back of the pack. Like Rossi said, you kind of just thought that they'd be able to kind of breeze through the challenges and make up ground. But I think just kind of little mistakes constantly cost them spots, and they'd gradually sort of move further down the ladder. I did love the whole running up the hill moment from episode 2. So at least they kind of had that highlight, even if they probably hated it at the time.
Yeah, and I think, Rossi, you said it best, that they just mentally weren't there a lot of the time, which is kind of scary since they're police officers. I don't really...
Well, we saw their policing, one of them policing skills of that woman was not in tip-top form.
They're good at rummaging through purses, they have some skills, but we did see, like, their cheerleading came in handy, so maybe if the whole police thing doesn't work out, they can become professional cheerleaders. I think they do good at that. Do we have a hashtag? Rossi, I'll let you go first. Do you have a hashtag for Dana and Amanda?
Hashtag Maritime Mountain Runners.
That's pretty good. Jared?
I think it just has to be hashtag still running up that hill.
I'm going to go with hashtag don't become a detective. I think all are appropriate, but
we want you on the show if you're listening.
Don't arrest us. Well, I guess I'm the only one that's a threat of that. You guys have like immunity for being out of the country or whatever,
or not willing to fly to Australia.
Yeah, exactly. Let's jump into episode 4 now. So this is the one that brings them back to Canada. They're immediately traveling to Halifax, which is in the Maritimes, which we find out is the home of Leilani and several others who are very familiar with Halifax. I always like when you could have the home advantage, but I like it even better when it doesn't work out. If either of you guys remember the Amazing Race season 1, like the very first American season, where the final 2 teams you had, I can't remember their names, but they were exes. Yeah, they were the exes, and it was their home team, and they spent the entire time saying, "We've got this because it's our home team," and then they lost. That was great. But we get lots of knowledge of Halifax in this one, and first thing we'll talk about is the Express Pass being handed off, if it was handed off. The scene was between Hamilton, Michaela, and Brent and Sean, which what I was saying earlier was that this scene kind of, for me, clearly showed that they always intended to give the Express Pass to Brent and Sean, and good on them for just not making it a strategic thing and not, leveraging that Express Pass. Whether they really had an option, I don't know, because we didn't see teams trying to get this, but Hamilton basically outs himself to Brent and Sean, and they have a nice little moment between the two teams, and I was struggling to even see whether the Express Pass was handed off, but Rossi, I think you said you saw one of them hand it to them, or what was it you saw?
I think it was just like a fade back shot where they were pulling out from the scene, and then cut to Gino and Jesse looking angrily, and then Kristen sneering or whatever. Very much like our own Kristen.
Kristen was christening on the Express Pass in this episode.
Yes. But it felt like a very dodgy, like, back alley deal. Like, the way they were just going about it, it didn't seem very official. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, we'll see when they use it.
Jared, did you see a little bit more of this? Or, because to me, it wasn't even clear whether the Express Pass was part of this scene.
Yeah, it wasn't like a huge moment. I think, just like Rossi said, kind of more of a, you just caught a quick glimpse of it, and then they showed sort of some of the other teams' reactions. But it was interesting to see them sort of give it over so early in the leg, when I suppose potentially they could have held on to it a bit longer and then maybe got some help during the leg and handed it off at a different time.
Yeah, I wondered about that too, and Rossi, you could probably correct me on this, but on the seasons with express passes, they do have to give away before the end of a leg, but I'm pretty sure that it almost always comes about like this, where they'll give it to somebody at a point where they're all waiting, like at an airport or whatever, because my real question about that would come down to what happens in a situation like this. What if you're racing and you just immediately are behind all the other teams and you miss the chance to give it away? Because that's what I honestly thought happened in this episode. I thought, well, I didn't see them give it to Brent and Sean, so maybe it's still out there. And then as this entire leg just completely blew up in their faces for Hamilton Michaela, I was convinced they were going to get to the pit stop and John would be like, you haven't given away your express pass. So have we ever had it where somebody can run legs of the race and challenges and they still have it in their pocket on the last leg they can give it away?
I have no idea. The only reference I can make is in the Australian season 2 with the salvage pass, and season 3 where the team that comes in like tries to save the last team. So I guess a similar thing would happen where they're like, who do you want to give it to? And they'll call that team to the pit stop and they'll be like, here's the express pass, we love you, or whatever.
Well, with the express pass in this one, we're really not even going to know, as far as I'm convinced, because you guys think you saw it, but I have no clue, so maybe we'll find out next week. But this is the one point where I was kind of disappointed. I think the show could have at least showed that. It's been such a big deal ever since Hamilton Michaela won it. They've shown us so many scenes about express pass. Like, yeah, they had a nice little scene between Brent and Sean and Hamilton Michaela, but like the express pass should have factored in somehow. So maybe we'll find out next week. They get to their first challenge, which is, I'm going to come right out and say, I've seen challenges where people dive out of buildings, where you have to swim with lobsters, whatever you want to call it, like bungee jump, everything. None of those things would faze me, but I see a challenge like this where there's 5,000 paintings on the wall and smartphones, and you have to pinpoint like a handful of them out of 5,000. If this were me, I would have been crapping my pants at this moment. Like, this is the type of thing that scares me on The Amazing Race. I can't even begin to fathom how a team counts with this many things on there. Did you like this challenge, Rossi? And would you have crapped your pants if you came across this?
Not quite the reaction I may have had, but who knows? I love these kinds of challenges. Although it kind of went pretty fairly quickly for mostly everyone. Even the teams that kind of worked together, it went fairly quickly for them. But I love these like needle in the hay kind of challenges. They need to revisit season 6 with the hay barrels. That was those kinds of challenges where you have to work at it to get the answer. It's not like going to come easy for one team and not some for the other. It's purely based on will, I guess.
Jared, how about this challenge? Could you have handled this? Do you like these really, really difficult ones?
I definitely think I would have struggled at it. And I think counting as a team is potentially, I mean, you have somebody to double check your count, but then that's potentially even more confusing. And I think the thing with this challenge was the fact that they're counting the things from fairly far away. I mean, there's like a desk where the people who work at this library are sort of still trying to do their thing, like in front of this wall. They're standing like a fair way back and obstructing the queues awkward. Of just library patrons trying to borrow their books and just causing chaos in the library.
Hashtag chaos in the library.
Yeah, I think for sure I would lose my count at some point, and I think one of the teams did make a comment about how you look away for a second or you blink and then you've forgotten what row you're up to, and then you've sort of recounting stuff and you've got to count again. But it was interesting to sort of see the teams work together and the different strategies throughout the challenge.
Yeah, and of course...
It would have been funny if the attendants were shouting numbers.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, 40,
there's just some
29.
jerk in the library who was messing with them and they just can't include that for whatever reason. We had a couple of teams, we had Neil and Kristen, the wrestlers, Brent and Sean and Gino and Jesse, who just could not get this at all, and they ended up teaming up together again with what I thought was a pretty smart strategy. Like, usually I don't like it when people just kind of give up on challenges and they try to outsmart it, but I thought this was kind of clever. Did you like this strategy, or did you feel like you were kind of cheated that they weren't there for a day and a half trying to solve this, Rossi?
Yeah, a bit of like, yeah, they should have stuck it out. I hated that they teamed up. Like, one of them could have easily been eliminated had there not been a bigger issue with one of the other teams. Like, how easily could have Neil and Kristen fallen behind and stuff had they not done that? Like, I wish that a challenge like that should go out for a lot longer. And I also wish that it did, because then Hamilton and Michaela would have stayed in the race probably had they done that.
Ulterior motives for you wanting this to go longer. I actually really like that they teamed up together because I thought the strategy was smart. What about you, Jared? Did you like this, or would you rather they run it out and not been able to help each other?
I think I probably would have preferred it if they didn't work together. I'm not a huge fan of the teams working together unless it's kind of part of the race, at whatever the name is for when they have to team up with another team that I can't think of at the moment. But
Intersection.
That's the one. Yeah, I think it was really smart though. I did love the whole, I think it was Nick's comment about, I went into teacher mode and I said, you guys take the 30s, we'll take the 40s, and this team take the 50s, was a funny comment. But yeah, I think it was smart. It would have been nice to see the team that got it just kind of go away and not tell the other teams what the answer was, but obviously that would have been stupid and caused issues for them probably on a later leg, but I would have liked to see that.
Yeah, I always kind of put myself in the player's shoes when there's these really tough challenges, and I think the fact that it was down to 4 teams, they knew they were last place, and you had to have been running the odds at that point and thinking, like, maybe some of these teams will get it, and if we just wait this out, one of us is going to be the very last team, and it's almost guaranteed we're going to be gone. So I think more than anything, these teams were probably thinking, like, it just makes sense. Let's work together, and we'll battle it out on the next leg, because, again, that's probably just me, because I look at this challenge, and it terrifies me, and I love to watch stuff like this, where it's just an impossible challenge, where it's just attention to detail and tedious, and those are the things that make the race good, but I would never want to do this. So I would have been, as soon as I saw this, I would have been grouping everybody together and saying, okay, if we all just work together and guess at these numbers, none of us have to do it. So that would have been me. We're moving on after this challenge. So before we get to the next one, we do have a bit of a passport incident that's going to come up here with Hamilton and Michaela. This episode just occurred to me, I don't know if there's many other teams that dominate an episode this much in so many different areas, not just what goes on in the episode. But we kind of covered the whole Express Pass thing, or whether or not they handed it off to Brent and Sean. But Hamilton, as I mentioned earlier on, he outed himself in that last scene. He said, I'm transitioning or whatever. I don't know if he's finished his transition or the whole details of it, but that he used to be a girl. And Brent and Sean had no idea, and that pretty much goes along with what all of us said. I remember classic moment of The Amazing Race. Go back to our preview episode where we discuss how Noah thought this was the worst procedure ever because he thought Hamilton already was the guy becoming a girl. So I thought it was kind of like a scene that, if for nothing else, it really did back up that there's no reason that Hamilton was treated differently on this race. Because the other teams had no clue, did they? Rossi?
Oh, yeah, no, I was surprised. The thing that surprised me the most about it was that this wasn't like kind of information that was already out there. Not that the other teams knew about each other, but like that this wasn't stated earlier, because I feel like that person on Sucks is going to hate this, but like in the American version, it would be a big deal, and then I could see a person wanting to hide that information, but I thought like maybe on the Canadian version it'd be like spread like just the news, and it wouldn't be a big deal at all, and everyone would be like, no, by the first episode. Mm-hmm. So I was more surprised that it wasn't expressed clearly. And the scene also was good because we did get confirmation that they were gay.
With Brent and Sean. Yeah. Again, this is just something I was saying it when we were in the preview episode and many others, that in Canada, people just, they don't really make a big deal. It's not like it's not like you even feel like you need to comment and stuff like this. It's just, okay, you know, whatever. You just move on. And the same thing with Brent and Sean. I mean, I don't think anybody was really, you know, surprised, but I don't think anybody really cared. And you are right, Rossi, and I think that nobody from America should really take this as insulting America. It's the way the television shows are presented down there, I think, is what we're commenting on. Because if this was the American version, I mean, Hamilton would have been urged by the producers to come out and tell all the teams right away, and so they would have a storyline. They want a storyline to tell, and I mean, let's face it, if this were really done the way that the producers wanted, Charlotte would have come out with a shirt that said, like, height impaired, or Luke would have, you know, had, like, you know, don't talk to me, I'm deaf, or something like that, you know. I mean, just the way that, again, we're kind of just making a joke about it, but let's be honest, the way that these American TV shows are produced, they feel like they have to drill all these things in there, and that's the way that Hamilton would have been presented. And it is very refreshing to watch a show where the other contestants have no idea, and even when they find out, it's just sort of like, oh, okay, great. You know, Jared, do you have anything to add on that?
No, I just thought the whole thing was really well handled, and it's, I suppose, nice for Hamilton to have some control over what's revealed and who he tells certain things to, and all that. So I think, yeah, it was kind of just, the whole thing was handled really tactfully and just kind of there. Yeah, it was good that they didn't make a big deal out of it, I think.
Mm-hmm. It's almost in a way a throwback. I think the only other time I could think of in American television where something about a character wasn't made a big deal of was like the first season of Survivor with Richard Hatch, where he, you know, just came in like the third or fourth episode. It wasn't even in the previews where they even mentioned it. Or you did with Hamilton, you at least get the confessionals. With Richard Hatch on Survivor, that's what this was kind of like. They just drop it one day. He's like, I'm gay, and everybody's like, okay, well, and even Rudy, the old guy, was like, you know, whatever. So this was kind of a nice throwback to that, where television was simpler and you didn't feel like you had to spend all day talking about why somebody's different. Like, just let every team be a team and run the race. So,
well, I was reading on one of the, like, the Amazing Race wiki, that Luke, is that his name? The deaf one? That he's actually gay, and that they chose not to focus on that storyline at all, and they chose to focus on the deaf storyline.
Yeah, and I think that's the one that bothers me more than anything, because I think that Margie and Luke, as a team, they would have been very interesting if they just played them as characters, but rewatching that season, it's almost painful to watch. The show is fine, but any chance they have, they just had to drill that in there. So the previews, like, next time on The Amazing Race, will deaf contestant Luke, and it's like, okay, we get it, he's deaf. And then they check in at the pit stop, and you have to have these confessionals of every other team saying, wow, considering he's deaf, I'm really surprised. They're serious competition. Like, just say, wow, they came in first, good for them. Like, we don't have to make a big deal about it. Nothing to add on that? Do you want to jump in the passport drama now? Because this episode's running longer than we thought, because there's a lot to go on here with Hamilton and Michaela. All right, we'll move on then. The passport. Hamilton lost his passport in a cab. This is a mistake that other teams have made in the past. There's been issues with losing stuff, or losing your clues, losing your bags, whatever it is. I talked briefly with Cormac and Nicole, which you can download on our website or our iTunes feed. Hopefully, yeah. This new server might work out better than Kiwi 6. But they mentioned that this is something that's real with The Amazing Race. I thought, well, maybe this is just something, you know, because they're in a different country, or maybe they're just a stickler for the rules. And Cormac and Nicole, they didn't even know or believe that they were going to leave the country in season 2. But it was a rule that was very clear to all the teams. They said, you know, there's so many things that aren't even mentioned on the show where you need this in order to check in, and passports is one of them. So this is something that all the teams knew about, and Hamilton lost his passport. So there was so much that went on about this. Without going into the entire storyline here, was this one of the most interesting things we've seen on The Amazing Race in a long time? Because I thought we got like a real behind-the-scenes look here at stuff that they choose not to show on the show. They usually don't want these little behind the scenes things to make TV, but we're getting him like having to call the airport and wait in line. Like, I thought this stuff was great. Rossi?
Yeah, it was more of a true cameraman perspective, like a documentary kind of thing, instead of a edited TV show. And I mean, this is a more intense Canadian version of Zev and Justin. A few seasons in the Amazing, or whatever season in the Amazing Race, American, losing the passport, how it's a big deal. But one thing that really bothered me is that Hamilton kept saying, one rule of the Amazing Race Canada is, like, why couldn't he just say Amazing Race?
Why didn't he have to say one rule of the Amazing Race Canada? Brought to you by BMO Cashback Mobile Elite.
Sponsored by Petro
and
Canada.
Mentos. Yeah, you're right. I mean, the passport scene, we've seen stuff like this before. One thing it really reminded me of was season 2, I believe it was, of the Australian version, where the Italian sisters accidentally got arrested just for pulling into a place. Jared, I'm sure you saw that season. Was this kind of a reminder of that, and how these unexpected things happen and the show just can't avoid it? They have to show it.
Yeah, definitely. It's nice for them to I suppose show more of the things that aren't outside the race, but I suppose don't involve the challenges and are involving more of the behind the scenes stuff. And I think with this, it was good to see, because we've seen similar things before, but it's been a while since it's been such like a big event. Like, most of the times you just have a team, or they left their bag in the taxi, or they've still got their passport, but they've lost like some other thing that they're looking for, and then usually it's kind of resolved pretty quickly. The taxi returns, or they ring up the taxi company and they figure it out. But for them to go all the way to the airport and to still be waiting and not sure if they were going to get it or not, and then for them to eventually get it, and then for them to kind of head back to the pit stop and still seemingly being with a chance of making it before other teams, was just a really good storyline, and didn't detract from the episode at all, just added to sort of the drama.
There's so much going on in this episode, and I think one of the other things I want to talk about is how we complained in the Amazing Race season 25 and some of season 26 about how they just always had to throw these mini challenges in there. It's like, why not just stick to a roadblock and a detour? But I felt like this episode, there were so many of these little mini challenges and route markers and stuff that, let's take a look at the roadblock. I mean, they're just climbing up a bridge. It's such a small part of the episode, there's really nothing to even talk about, but this episode felt almost like a 2-hour episode, like they fit everything in here. And then the Orange Julius challenge, like more product placement. We had Mentos and Orange Julius. But these things, as cheesy as some of them are, I mean, this is like 4 challenges in one episode, and yet this felt like a longer episode. Rossi, do you have anything to talk about for either the bridge climbing or the Orange Julius taste challenge?
The only thing I got from the bridge was the funny moment with Kristen, and I believe it was either Gino or Jesse, how Kristen doesn't even have to use the binoculars and she sees him. And then Jesse or whoever is looking for like forever. Or whoever that was. I don't remember. Maybe was that Nick?
I think it was Gino and Jesse.
Yep. Yeah, I think it
okay.
was Jesse.
I just thought that was a funny moment. Other than that, it wasn't interesting. And then, the freaking smoothies. I just kind of flashed back to season 2 of the Canadian with the grilled cheeses. Yeah. Which that one's a lot harder than this one, but this was a quick challenge. So, I just am surprised that the lady at the desk didn't say, "How will you be paying for this?" And then Sabrina says, "With our BMO
Cashback Mobile Elite MasterCard." Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the most interesting challenge ever, but I was surprised because these things, if this were season 26, especially the American version, they'd show up, they'd fit it in for the product placement, and then it would be done. But we saw some teams really struggling with this. I think Nick and Sabrina and Brian and Cynthia. Here's my Brian and Cynthia great moment of the episode. Brian asking Kai, isn't that a parrot? That's the name of the new parrot. Like, if we can get Akai the parrot on here to replace Poofy the Puffin or whatever we called it, then we got a mascot for season 3 of Canada. Do you guys have Orange Julius in United States, right?
It sounds familiar, but
It's not a big deal if you have it.
it's like I feel like I've heard of it, but I've never seen it. I think it's kind of like a Tim Hortons. I've heard about it, but I've never seen one.
Yeah, and Jared, I'm assuming you don't have Tim Hortons or Orange Julius.
I had never heard of it before the episode, so I doubt it.
I googled Orange Julius, and it's pulling up Dairy Queen locations.
Oh, okay. So it's one of those things. Dairy Queen owns it, which, by the way, Dairy Queen even used to own Tim Hortons. So Dairy Queen just likes buying up other Canadian franchises, I guess. Orange Julius, I just want to make a comment that has nothing to do with this episode. That was pretty much the only smoothie place when I was a kid. So I can remember, like, as a kid, if you got to go to the mall food court and Orange Julius was there, it's like, yeah, Orange Julius, it was like the greatest thing ever. And there's so many smoothie places now. I mean, here in Canada, we have places like Booster Juice and Jugo Juice and stuff like that. And I mean, even McDonald's offers them now. I had Orange Julius a few years ago, and it tasted like garbage in comparison. Like, this is like, if you have something when you're a kid, and it's the first time you ever had it, you don't realize how much better it can get. So, maybe I'll go back there since they have at least 5 flavors now, because it used to be...
Avoid the parrot.
Yeah, I want the parrot flavor, please. At the time when it used to be around, or it used to be more popular, it was called Orange Julius for a reason, because they only offered an orange smoothie. So that's just a comment. Jared, did you like the taste testing challenge? Did it make you...
It's a bad business.
What's that?
It's a bad business if your only smoothies is colored orange.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is they would sell food, too. You could get burgers there or fries, but the place was called Orange Julius, and it was the only flavor they offered. So people were pretty plain back in the 90s, I guess. Jared, did this make you thirsty? Did you want to try an acai pineapple or mango?
A little bit. I was kind of eyeing off the kiwi strawberry. Looked good. Probably one of my favorites. If I had to pick out of the lot of flavors there. I thought they were both like good, fun challenges. I think you always get these kind of search for your next location, and you think that it's going to be really simple and that it will be boring, but they always kind of end up to be quite interesting with teams getting lost, and you always know that there'll be one team that goes to just something that's colored yellow that's obviously not right. Like, I think it was Nick and Sabrina who went to, did they go to like a yellow boat in the harbour or something, or rather there was like a little boat, like a dock, and they're like, oh yeah, I saw a yellow boat or something or rather.
I don't remember, but it sounds like something they would do.
And then Gino and Jesse went to the park.
Yeah. Gino and Jesse saw all of Halifax before they found the right spot.
Exactly, but it was good to see teams just kind of finding it, driving on their way back instead of having to go back up the bridge again. But yeah, and I think the smoothie challenge was just a lot of fun. I'm a fan of kind of the extra challenges, provided that they have some ability to change up the order. If it's a challenge that is simple and easy and is kind of just a first team in there as the first team out as an additional challenge, then I think it's kind of a waste. But with this, like, it did kind of shuffle up the order a bit again, and having all the teams so bunched up, it was good to sort of spread them out just a little bit again.
Yeah, again, like, that's something I'm loving about this season, is that nothing's predictable. And again, I was a huge fan of season 25 of the American version, but in retrospect, looking back on that, it was the same 3 or 4 teams at the front every single week, and I love that everything's getting mixed up here. The Detour did even more to mix the teams up. We had 2 choices, Bubbles and Suds. Bubbles, they did a bunch of stuff there. This was like an entire scientist job. They dove to the bottom of a tank, retrieved a couple of lobsters. They had to tag the lobsters. There was so much going on there. And then Suds, they basically had to pick up kegs of beer and then drop off other ones, which of course most of the teams only did half of that. I thought that these were 2 very entertaining challenges to watch this time, and again, we saw a lot of mistakes and some hilarious moments. Rossi, if you had to choose between Bubbles and Suds, which one would you do, and which one was more interesting?
The beer was the Suds, right? Yeah, I would do that one, hands down. I just seemed, the lobster one just seemed too technical, So I prefer to just run around the up and down streets of Halifax.
Would you have remembered to do the pickups?
Probably not. You were running in the Halifax streets. You know how crazy it can get in the Maritime.
Could you have carried 2 kegs at one time like Lilani did? Which, let's just say, Lilani is the beast of this season of The Amazing Race. Because at no point did Dijon say, oh, you know what, that looks really hard, let me try that. You can just push this cart.
That's a good point. I did not think of that. I probably would have just rolled them up the hills.
Yeah, that would have been a good way to do it. Nobody thought about that. Jared, Bubbles or Suds?
I definitely would have picked Bubbles just because I think that looked a lot more fun, and I just love seeing the team struggle at that. For Cynthia to just seeing her try to dive down, and she went nowhere. Like, she would go maybe 1 meter under the water, and then that was it. No, coming back up. So that was just hilarious. And to see so many teams struggle with that, like Hamilton was having a panic attack on the edge of the pool that seemed so over the top. And then for them to already be behind and then make a mistake and then try to get out of there quickly again. And then Neil and Kristen were funny as well, with her kind of just going off at him to sort of hurry it up, and then them telling Gino and Jesse that they needed to get 25 lobsters each from the bottom of the pool. Was good. And Nick and Sabrina as well, with her whole, I don't think you can do this, and him, yeah, I can do it. And as soon as they get to the edge of the pool, he's like, no, I can't do it. We need to change. Was great as well.
How much were all of us just dying for them to be stuck with this? Like, if this were a roadblock. Because we were talking all preseason about how they're afraid of the water. Let's put them in the water. This would have been great to see how they could have handled this. They never did it, of course. Yeah, so many funny moments, like you mentioned. With Cynthia, I mean, she says she floats well, but she can't dive. I guess diving's another one of those things that they need to start teaching in the Winnipeg Police Academy, because we're getting a lot of things that these police officers just aren't equipped for. So what happens if one day she has to dive for some armed robber who just robbed an Orange Julius, and she's got to chase him to the bottom of the Red River? Like, what's going to happen? Yeah. What else did we have on here? Hamilton's fear of the water. You know about that?
Well, I was just going to mention, in episode 2, they used the Express Pass because Hamilton didn't want to dress in the clothes that they had for the dance, and I was just so shocked that he was willing to just take off his shirt. And
I thought
that shocked me the most about anything.
I thought about that, and again, this is one of those areas where I think Hamilton and Michaela are kind of a mystery, because their moves just don't make sense to me. And I don't think that they're a dumb team. I just think that maybe they don't understand the logic, or maybe they were, like we talked in preseason, their age, they're very young, and maybe they just didn't have the maturity. But was the shorts here really more revealing than, the Rapanui dancing outfit? I mean, it doesn't seem that way to me. So I'll also say right now, I mean, we can get into this more later, but had Hamilton and Michaela just switched detours in that second leg and kept their Express Pass, right here they would have had the Express Pass. It only came down to having to do these challenges. If they had been able to use the Express Pass and then just take that time to go to the airport and wait on the passport, or do it the other way, say, forget about the challenges, we're going to sit at the airport, we're going to wait for our passport, and then when it's done they can jump right there. It could have won them even 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and then they could have still been in this. So I really just don't understand their logic in this. So I'm with you on that, Rossi. Jared, do you understand Hamilton Michaela any more than that, or do you have anything to add on that?
Not really. I just think that at this point they were just really panicking about everything, and they just, I suppose any logic kind of went out the window, and it was just kind of go, 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 and not really thinking things through before they progressed to the next spot.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. I mean, as we said, we haven't seen a lot of teams where it was this hard to find the passport, and what are they going to do if the next leg is leaving the country, or obviously they couldn't even check in, and there's no penalty for something like this. I want to point out, maybe with the funniest moment, of the entire season for me. This tops anything that even Brian and Cynthia did. Brent and Sean, their battles with the lobster. Sean screaming where he's like, ah! And then he corrects himself. I mean, oh. That was the greatest moment I've seen on The Amazing Race in so long. I love Brent and Sean. They're just a hilarious team. Nobody else thinks so?
Like, no, I agree. Them with the lobsters was great. I love the part when like its claws got stuck on the bucket and they're just trying to get up into the bucket and it's hanging onto the edge and like they're like hitting this lobster like basically going to snap it in half because they're being so aggressive with it.
Yeah, even if you tag the lobster, it needs to be alive in order for you to complete this challenge. I think that's what he was doing by changing the octave of his voice, is that he was trying to assert himself as what do you call it, where you have some type of authority over the animal. Anybody know what I'm talking about here?
Master of the lobsters?
Yeah, let's call it that. He wants to be master of the lobsters. Sean is the master of the lobsters. It's just fantastic. After this, they pretty much check in at the pit stop, which is at some farmer's market. What do we have here? Number one team, Dijon and Lilani. So let's start it off. First place, I calculate them as the only team that has risen in the rankings every single week so far. Rossi, what do you think of Dijon and Lilani?
Yeah, similar to you, they've gone up. I was shocked that I'm actually, from episode 1 where we got nothing from them. In episode 2, they had a little bit, and they just keep getting better and better. They're improving in the challenges. They're improving in their entertainment. Like, they just are more entertaining. They're producing better quotes. They're becoming more memorable. And she won in Halifax, so go them.
Home city advantage worked for her. Jared, Dijon and Lilani?
Yeah, I've sort of grown to really like them. I love the dancing challenges that are thrown in, and even though maybe it's unfair, but I just hope that they keep throwing them in because it's kind of funny that they have like this little advantage and now they're in their hometown, so the advantages just keep coming. I mean, Lilani was just a beast, like you said. This whole episode, she just carried the team, and she knew what she was doing, and she made sure everything got done really fast. And with the last season of the American version, I was hoping that Haley and Blair would end up together, and I mean, that hasn't happened, and it's disappointing. But I mean, if Dijon and Lilani aren't meant to be together, who is in the world?
Exactly.
I mean, clearly they're just the perfect couple.
I love that we got a little bit of Lilani yelling at Dijon again. They're kind of interesting because they're not like Haley and Blair. With Haley and Blair, you just felt bad for Blair the whole time. And yeah, he wasn't the smartest guy in the world, but Haley just was like, oh, so nasty to him. With Dijon and Lilani, you almost see, when they do bicker, you see it from both point of views. You see that Dijon really is with the best intentions, and he's trying to say the right thing, but he just maybe is, not that well spoken. So you kind of see it from his point of view, and then you see it from Lilani's point of view, where it's like, you know what, if Dijon said that to me, even though he's not meaning anything bad by it, I'd probably scream at him to shut up too. Like, they're one of the most interesting couples of exes I think we've ever seen on The Amazing Race. So, and as I said, the only team in The Amazing Race Season 3 that has risen each week. They went from 8th place to 5th place to 4th place to 1st. So there's nowhere else for them to go from here, so it's over. They've peaked, unless they win this thing. Number 2 this week, we have Brian and Cynthia. The exact opposite of Dijon and Lilani. They have gone from 9th to 2nd, back to 9th, back to 2nd. They're really bipolar with their results here, but I love Brian and Cynthia. Rossi, tell us about Brian and Cynthia.
I was very negative of them in the beginning, and they have been getting better and better every episode. I think we need to make this a recurring series of the Brian and Cynthia moment of the episode, because they're just getting so much funnier, and everything they do is just getting funny. I just love them.
There's no truck in the scenario anymore, is there?
Not in this situation. Susan and Sharon, who?
Susan and Sharn are completely hidden behind the truck. Brian and Cynthia, forget the truck. The truck would float too, let's be honest. I mean, Brian and Cynthia, so much better. Jared, Brian and Cynthia.
Yeah, I've loved them from when I've started watching. Who knows how they were in episode 1, but episode 2 onwards, they've been great. Yeah, just like we say, the unintentional funny moments that they have, and just that dry sense of humor, and just the throwaway comments that if you're not paying attention you wouldn't notice, that are just hilarious. And I just love that they do everything so straight faced.
Third place, Nick and Matt. Now, again, I'm kind of going through the trends here because I'm finding the last couple weeks to be very interesting, but Nick and Matt went from 6th place, and this is their 3rd week in a row stuck in 3rd place. So we kind of saw a bit of a tease in episode 3 with a rivalry between Gino and Jesse. They're obviously beating Gino and Jesse, but they can't crack 2nd place or 1st place. So, Rossi, what do you think of Nick and Matt?
They kind of are going down for me because I enjoyed them the first 2 episodes with Brian.
Everybody, that's how memorable, I'm just going to say, that's how memorable Brian is. If you're trying to think of anybody in The Amazing Race and you can't think of the name, you substitute it with Brian.
With the wrestlers passing Cynthia on the courses, the rope course and things like that. Like, they've had good moments before, but then they kind of just blending in, like, their only story arc is they're in 3rd place all the time. Like, they're not really interesting, and they're not saying anything really funny.
Jared, you're a big fan of the wrestlers. What did you think about them episode 4?
Yeah, they didn't have that much going on this episode. There was that kind of smart moment to work together at the counting challenge, but apart from that, we didn't really see that much of them. So I'm hoping that we get to see a bit more of them, and just that they're put in some funny situations with the challenges.
Yeah, this was definitely the most quiet episode, so I'll agree on that. I think last week it was hilarious. They were the funniest dancing team that we had in the Dirty Dancing, but this week, really all we had from them was that moment, which, let's give them credit. I mean, it got them by, and they ended up in 3rd place. So where would they have been if they didn't get the other teams to team up with them? But not their funniest episode. 4th place, Brent and Sean. Again, I love the moment. But it's hard to not love everything about Brent and Sean. They're just such a hilarious team. Rossi?
Yeah, I think this was a relatively quiet episode. I think it was just so taken up by H&M that, like, they didn't even get a chance to see Brent and Sean, who are usually stars of the episodes, really didn't get much airtime. But yeah, the thing was funny, and then the bucket. Yeah, they're just good all around. I'm concerned they may not last long, but hopefully they do.
Well, they're another one of those teams that's flip-flopping here. They went from 3rd place to 8th place to 6th, and now they're in 4th. So they're kind of all over the map. But
I think it's a testament to the season and the challenges than really these contestants, whereas, season 26, I'm sure.
So glad we're done with
Or
that.
even season 2 of the Canadian with the hockey girls just dominating.
Yeah.
It was good for them, but it kind of got boring.
Yeah, I said it earlier, I'm loving how there's these switch-ups every week. Jared, Brent, and Sean?
Yeah, they're great value. I love them at the Lobster Challenge. I think that was kind of one of the highlights of the whole episode. And I like that they have the Express Pass too. I think for it to go to a team that's not the worst team, but is kind of more of a middle of the pack team is good. I mean, when it goes to the team that's the worst, then it's always one of those things that they're in last, so maybe they have to use it sort of really soon, and it doesn't sort of stick around and play a big part in how things turn out. But I think having it with a team that's kind of middle of the field is good, and it won't change things up too much, I don't think.
5th place, we have Simi and Opie. They haven't really been taking up a lot of screen time. I still think they're great for what we do see them, but they're settling in much like the wrestlers. 3 out of their 4 legs, they've been in 5th place, and they were 5th place again here. Rossi, what did you think of Simi and Opie this week?
I love them, but they're not really doing anything entertaining-wise. Like, I don't remember anything that they did stand out. The only thing that's come into head is when they left the Suds challenge and they said, Nick and Sabrina just got here, we're safe.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. They got in a taxi cab. That was the most thrilling thing they did the episode, so.
Jared?
Yeah, they don't have a lot of interesting moments. I do like them, though. I did think that potentially that he would sort of be a bit hard on her and that they'd get on one another's nerves, but their relationship kind of seems to be really positive and they seem to sort of spur each other on and help each other out. So that's good to see.
Yeah, maybe more than anything, they're just not providing drama at this point, and we have so much with Hamilton, Michaela, and obviously Dejan and Lalani, and then you got the bigger characters like Brian and Cynthia, and Nick and Matt, Brett and Sean. So I don't know if we're really ever going to see them emerge as stars of an episode unless they can make it all the way to the end. But I still love what we do see of Simi and Opie, and I hope we do see more. Sixth place, Neil and Kristen. Personally, I think they're getting better each week. Rossi, what do you think?
I think Kristen's getting better each week. Neil's not really doing anything.
I'm finding Neil to be, like, every once in a while he says something that's really funny and shows a lot of energy. I'm liking him more.
Okay, that's good.
You're not agreeing at all.
No, we're not agreeing this podcast.
Jared, do you like Neil, or is Kristen still... obviously, Kristen is the star of this team, which I don't think anybody expected, considering how famous Neil is. But I don't mind Neil. Jared, do you like Neil at all, or just Kristen?
I think he's okay. I think Kristen's definitely the star of the team, but I think with them... I think if either of them were with somebody else, then they wouldn't be as interesting or entertaining. I think it's sort of the combination of the two of them that really works well together, because it gives her a lot of sort of funny moments getting frustrated at him, and then he gets sort of some funny moments just being really kind of relaxed, and obviously that gets on her nerves that he's not as, I suppose, as intense of a character to her. So I think that was great. Her facial expressions are some of the hearts of the episodes. The death stare that she gave Hamilton and Michaela when they handed that express pass to Brent and Sean was just perfect.
Yeah, and I like that both of them are assertive in the right areas, and I think they're one of those teams where they each know where they have strengths and weaknesses. We saw, obviously, this week, Kristen, Dad, get a lobster! Like, very assertive. She knows when she's the one leading the charge here. What are their standings? They've gone 10th, 6th, first place last week, back to 6th. Again, all over the map. That's most of the teams this season. Nobody more so than the next place. 7th place, Gino and Jesse, pretty much rounding out the bottom again after having 2 really good legs scattered throughout. Rossi, Gino, and Jesse?
I like them. I don't know. They're one of the teams that I just kind of... Usually I don't go for those kinds of, like, the strong men, like, team. I don't really go for that, but I'm really liking them. Their walking around that park was so funny. I just lost it when they're like, oh, here's the cross, but there's nothing here. I just thought that was a good moment, and they were all over the map. They were first. After the first episode, I thought they were the winners, but then the second episode, they barely beat Susan and Sharon, which is beyond pathetic. And then going up top, and then almost losing again to a team that lost their passport. It's all crazy.
Yeah, like, they're not second last like they were in Leg 2, but being third last behind Nick and Sabrina and Hamilton and Michaela, those aren't bragging rights anymore. Jared, what do you think about Gino and Jesse?
I have pretty similar views to Rossi. It's a team that I wouldn't normally go for, but I just think they're so interesting because they can either do so well or be just terrible, and it's just like a real kind of train wreck to watch them sometimes. I mean, it's a good thing the Fitbits aren't in this season because I don't think they'd be able to keep up count with the amount of running like that Gino and Jesse do, because all the time they'll catch a taxi to the wrong spot, and then they'll kind of, their faith in the taxi system will wane, and then they'll be like, oh, maybe we'll just kind of run to the next spot. How far away is it, type thing. So it's great to see them struggle. I loved the park moment. It was just the worst description to the taxi driver ever of where they need to go. There's like like a cross, like a flagpole or something. Oh yeah, that's at this park. Okay, instead of the other teams, there's like all these flags, and it's on the top of a hill, which would have been helpful probably to the taxi driver. But yeah, they're just it's painful to watch them sometimes get stuff so wrong. But then it makes it that much more interesting that you know that there'll still be a factor in potentially staying in the episode.
Yeah.
Kudos to the taxi driver for finding a cross in the flagpole.
Well, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I love a team like Gino and Jesse that can surprise you with how bad they can be, but they still do live up to the reputation of being the alpha males that can, dominate. There's variety with Gino and Jesse, and for better or worse, they're really making the season interesting. The real question here, I'll go to Jared first on this, is do they have a shot at winning? Because I think there are three teams that almost all of us picked to be right at the top. Dana and Amanda, Hamilton, Michaela, and now Gino and Jesse. So none of us are doing really well with our predictions. Are Gino and Jesse the team that could surprise still, or do you think that this inconsistency with them pretty much doomed them?
I think they can still surprise. I think for me, I don't want to see them go, but I think I put them in last in my rankings. So it would probably be good if they did make a massive mistake and stuffed up somehow soon. But I think, it's a really interesting question to know whether 1 week they're running and their effort at the challenges, if it's going to be enough to kind of get them out of that last place if they've just had a terrible leg with directions and taxis and stuff.
Rossi, do you think they have any shot at winning at this point?
It's tough to say, because if you ask me, I never would have predicted either Tim or Mickey and Pete to win. So it's hard to say. I think they're the kind of go-to male team to win. Like Nick and Matt aren't winning. They're not going to be the male winners. I mean, I could be shocked, but the all-around guys are usually the ones that do well, like the all-around teams. So I think, keeping with Amazing Race history, they are more likely the winners than anyone else. But the season's kind of been all over the place, so who knows?
Keeping with Amazing Race Canada, there's a good chance of Simi and Opie are winning this thing, but
well, keeping with the Canada, then a male team's winning.
Yeah, if we're going that specifically, then probably I guess it would be Nick and Matt or Brent and Sean. Let's talk about Nick and Sabrina. Just go to it, Rossi. What did you think of them this week? Cover episodes 3 and 4.
Episode 3, they were funny because I actually got a good moment out of Sabrina with the repeating the menu items. Episode 4, they weren't even in it. I don't remember anything they did except not finding the Citadel. I didn't really think much of them. They had their struggles, but nothing of personality. Because pretty much Hamilton and Michaela were taking all the screen time.
Well, that's a good point, because the biggest moment that they would have had was their fear of water, but we got the exact same thing out of Hamilton and Michaela, and of course they were already dominating the episode. So, Jared, did you see anything more out of them in episode 4 that maybe we're forgetting?
I don't know, you're right, we didn't see much of them. They dropped to the back of the pack really sort of quickly, and I wasn't really expecting it. They weren't towards the front, but they were kind of in the middle group, and then all of a sudden they were kind of fighting to stay in it, which I think happened maybe when they sort of changed detours, was the point where they dropped out of it a bit more, but it seemed really sudden that they're out of it. I think they had some good moments potentially at the smoothie challenge. I think they were terrible at it, but I don't know, I don't remember.
Then we have, finally, Hamilton and Michaela. Interesting. Let's really quickly let's cover Nick and Sabrina, because it looks like they're the opposite of Dejan and Lilani. They are the one team that has consistently gotten worse every week. They've gone from 2nd to 4th to 8th 2 weeks in a row. So they're going to have to really do something big next week, because they're in trouble. But Hamilton, Michaela, yeah, Rossi, I know you're disappointed. Let's just say right off the bat, 4th place in the first leg, 1st in the second, in which they use the Express Pass. And then it all fell apart from there, 7th, 9th. As much as I don't really think that they were a smart team, I think if we are looking at story arcs here, Hamilton and Michaela have a great story arc, and it has nothing to do with Hamilton's personal story. It's about them on the race, and again, seeing the flaws of teams is something that I always find interesting. Rossi, you're probably the biggest Hamilton and Michaela fans. Why don't you talk about them a little bit?
They were just so interesting to watch. Like everything like every sort of challenge, there was a new sort of point that came along. It wasn't that they were, like Sabrina struggling or Nick and Matt uncomfortable to dance together, things like that. There was like a personal kind of connection that you got from every challenge. It wasn't just, oh, they were good or they were bad or something.
Mm. I think we could agree with Hamilton, but did you get that out of Michaela too, or because I'm struggling to think.
Well, I mean, with the passport, her passion about that passport thing, that was quite intense. I did not expect that out of her to get so. And he's like forming tears, like, I'm sorry. It's
that was one of the most dramatic moments of the season for sure. Or I guess all 3 seasons. Jared, well, what do you think about Hamilton and Michaela? There's so much to talk about with them, even though it's only 4 legs in.
I think they were a really interesting team. It's not that they had that many kind of funny moments, but they were just a team that I think you kind of naturally just went for. There was just something about them that you wanted to see them do well. I don't know if it was just because they were so young or any particular reason, but there was just something about them that you wanted to sort of see them stick around, even if they weren't providing hugely entertaining moments throughout the episodes.
I'm kind of going to sort of agree with Rossi, which sounds weird here, but I think that Hamilton and Michaela, I will agree with you that you can go back to every episode, and I was talking about their story arc, and every single episode you can remember. So if I never rewatch this season, 10 years down the road, if you mention Hamilton and Michaela, I'm going to remember, okay, well, they had the moment where they didn't want to, dress in the outfit, and they used their express pass, and then they had, the trying to leverage the express pass, and then they had the passing off the express pass and the coming out scene, and they had the passport. I mean, they had a lot of interesting things happen around them. Would I consider them to be an entertaining team? I have to say no. I would say of all the teams on this season, as far as who's entertaining and who's interesting to watch, I mean, maybe it is just because the first few teams to go, but Susan and Sharon, Dana and Amanda, and Hamilton and Michaela, not really teams I'd be dying to have back on an All-Star season. I like the story they had this time, but so much of that also had to do with just their inexperience in making poor decisions. So I think that they're definitely going to be stars of the season, but not because of their personalities, more because of just the events that happened around them. So, you have any response to that, Rossi, or any last comments to add on Hamilton and Michaela? I'll give you the floor.
I think it was Noah. I don't want to unintentionally bash Noah here, but he said that he kind of thought that they were cast just because he was transgender, and I think that kind of these 4 episodes kind of proved that it wasn't just that. They could kind of create some content. It may not have been the funniest. You weren't laughing out loud, but you were interested and you watched them. And it wasn't like a wallpaper team where you kind of forgot about them. You couldn't, because they were there and they were present with the exception of the first episode, there for the 3. And I could see them coming back for an unfinished business Canada season. Maybe not an All-Stars. And I hope it's season 4, unfinished business. Perhaps we can get Cormac and Nicole on there.
Yes. Cormac and Nicole are already thinking about an All-Star season. Listen to the Cormac and Nicole interview. Hopefully up already.
Hopefully.
We're just going to really quickly say, before we get on to the predictions, our preseason predictions here, the last one, Jared got the point for. Jared got the point on episode 3, which, how shocking is that, considering he didn't see anything about the teams and he just guessed at this. Jared's psychic intuition paid off on his Neil and Kristen, Dana and Amanda. Probably helped that he was the only.
Oh, spoilers!
He was the only one that didn't think Dana and Amanda were going to win the season, basically. But you got a point, Jared. How incredible is this? Something that's becoming common for you? Are you clairvoyant? Let's just say the obvious question.
I would like to think so, but looking at the rest of my list, I doubt it. I think a lot of the teams that are still in the race have been kind of in the lower spots on my rankings, and according to my predictions, should already have gone home. So I think I needed to get some points early, and that's kind of my only hope, is scooping up some points maybe over the next couple of weeks, because when it gets down to the final weeks, I don't think I'll have anybody who's still in the race in the top positions.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think your success is probably short-lived, because as we said, you had Gino and Jesse as the first team out, and jumping right into it, you had Hamilton Michaela place the highest in second place, so you're officially out of it this week. Sorry to burst your bubble there. I got you all excited for nothing.
Ruin the streak.
The streak is over after 1 week. Tie after that, Noah and Rossi both had Hamilton Michaela in third place, so that's not going to happen. You guys are out. I had Hamilton Michaela in sixth place. I'm out of it.
Oh my god, if Kristen gets it, oh my god.
Are we worried about Kristen and her Skynet here? The world's going to come
If
to
she
an end.
wins, I'm gonna quit.
Well, don't worry too much. She had it just behind me. She had Hamilton Michaela in seventh place. So there's still somebody who hasn't been listed yet, and he's not here, and he may not be here for the rest of the season at this rate, but only one spot off. Alex had Hamilton Michaela in 10th place. So Alex gets the point now. Are we happy for Alex, or are we just happy it wasn't Kristen?
How many points is Alex on altogether?
One.
Yeah.
He's tied with you and
One,
Kristen.
okay.
Rossi's ahead of everybody.
Yeah, that's allowed
Okay.
then.
So as long as he's not ahead of you, or...
Yeah, as long as I'm not in last, it's okay.
Well, Rossi, you're in first because you nailed...
Am I?
Yeah, well, you nailed episode 2. You got it right on the nose. So you picked Susan and Sharn to be 11th place.
Oh, sweet.
And then behind you...
This will not last.
Well, I don't know, because Kristen, Jared, and Alex are all at 1 point, and Noah and I have yet to get any predictions right. Let's see.
Well, I need to redeem myself from getting last place behind Jared last year.
Yeah, like,
so.
come on, if Jared's beating you, like, those are grounds to jump in front of a car along with a dog in Santiago. I mean,
I'm with the parrot in the smoothie.
the parrot's
My Amazing Race predictions aren't that bad. It's more my Survivor predictions you have to worry about if I'm ahead of you.
Yeah. If what about your Oz vision? How were you in that? You did pretty good, didn't you?
Oh yeah, I took out that title, so don't even try and verse me in the Euro prediction.
That's his expertise.
Someone's getting cocky.
Next week, according to Kristen, Susan and Sharn are going to go. Good luck with that. Alex picks Brian and Cynthia.
They're bad enough to get last every episode, so.
Please come on the show, Susan and Sharn. Not everybody's as critical of you as Noah and Rossi. Alex thinks that Brian and Cynthia are going next. Noah thinks Brent and Sean are going.
Probably
Rossi, you think
Express
Brent and
Pass.
Sean are going.
Oh,
You
well,
and Noah are really... You and Noah are exactly the same on both Hamilton Michaela and on Brent and Sean. How many other areas are you and Noah exactly alike?
I think that's about it.
You're just praying that's only it, right?
Yeah.
Jared, you think Dana and Amanda are going next week. And I pick Nick and Matt to go next week, so I'm hoping that's not the case. But do we have a hashtag for Hamilton Michaela? Rossi, I'll let you go last because you're going to be the nicest. Jared, hashtag for Hamilton Michaela?
Hashtag... Hashtag Express Pass failure. I don't know.
We'll edit out the dramatic pause, or we'll add in dramatic music to go along with it. So I'm gonna go with hashtag should have saved the Express Pass, as I stated earlier. Dumb move. Rossi, we'll give you the final say. A Hamilton Michaela hashtag.
Hashtag the king and
The
queen.
king and queen, okay. And next week, we're still in Canada, we're over to Quebec. And we will see lots of interesting stuff, like milking, pooping, water wars, and a double U-turn. Which one of those things piques your interest the most, Rossi? Milking, pooping, water wars, or U-turn?
After, I don't see the previews because I don't want to look, but after Shelley and Nisi, I'm hoping it's one of the contestants, so we'll say pooping.
All right. Jared, do you think the milking will lead to the pooping? Do we have some lactose intolerant animals on the show this year?
Potentially. I'm hoping. I think in the preview it looked like cows, but maybe hopefully there's a camel and a zebra in there as well.
Nora.
And what's lake we're at? We're at Lake 5. So yeah, as we said, Lake 5 is where I'm gonna have to edit out that I just forgot their name. Cormac and Nicole. Lake 5 is where Cormac and Nicole left last year, and you can download our interview with Cormac and Nicole from Season 2, Amazing Race Canada. Hopefully, right now on the website and on iTunes. And I just want to say, it was an awesome interview. I think we've talked to a lot of people from Survivor, only a couple from Amazing Race. Like, when I talked to Natalie and Nadia, it was for Survivor Recap, and they were a lot of fun, but I don't think I've talked to anybody who loved the show they were on as much as Cormac and Nicole, and they're great. They had great answers to all the questions, gave some good insights. Listen to that, and we're hoping to have them back on this season, and maybe a couple other guests throughout the season. We'll just have to wait and see. Rossi, thanks for being here and providing insightful commentary and different points of view on Hamilton, Michaela, and whatever else it is you talked about so far this season.
It's good, but sad to be here, saying goodbye to the great team.
Right now, you think the season sucks because they're gone. Is the season going to be good again next week? Will pooping redeem the season?
No, I think the season's fine. I don't have a problem with it. It's just one really rough leg.
All right. And Jared, thanks for proving that you're not clairvoyant, and thanks for keeping the competition alive, and the never-ending battle with Skynet will continue.
I look forward to every week. The Amazing Race Canozda is a highlight.
And hopefully we'll be joined next week by Noah if he melts or thaws. Whatever's going on in Snug right now, there is a national disaster in Snug with a snowstorm. I'm sure he's listening to this right now if iTunes still functions for him. So we'll be back next week. Until next time, we will speak to you on the planes with our passports.